Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. It's always a joy to remind you that your most important energy of life, that which is most you, is the God Spirit at the very center of your being. I encourage you to be in contact with that God Spirit every day and to allow that God Spirit to be directive of you in your own personal living. Just a couple of other things to mention also. By way of email this morning, you would have received the email concerning our Save the Date, our picnic annually in August the 22nd, 6 months from today. I encourage each of you to make every effort to try to join us for the picnic if you're able to do so. It's a wonderful event. It'll be just a little south of Akron on Saturday, August the 22nd. Also, those of you who are involved with UAP disclosure, you would have received some emails concerning that this week. I encourage you to be responsive to them. Lastly, I just want to mention that tonight we'll be having our wonderful program, A Return to Love with Marianne Williamson. Just want to give you my encouragement if you're able to join us tonight to do so. We're now ready to begin. My dear friends, it's been a joy to share our recent teachings on seeming unfairness and personal outreach. To say the least, life is very complex, and often people are confused. They are at a loss to understand why certain things happen as they do. Recently, I was at a gathering where a person asked a question that was very provocative. The question was, why does God allow certain things to happen, such as wars, unfairness, and certain diseases such as cancer and Alzheimer's? It was clear that the participants in the discussion were very much putting the blame on God. And while they seemed to understand that perhaps human beings were having a part to play in some of these things, it was quite clear that a deeper understanding was not able to be reached with them. But you're different. You are different. You realize that things happen because people make them happen, both for the good as well as for those seemingly unfair things. And it has taken all of us to work together to understand some of these complexities of life. In today's teaching, I want to address probably the greatest perplexity of life, the energy of shame. I will begin with the reality of shame in people's lives, why it is present, how it is experienced, and how people try to compensate for it. And then I will address the basic problem of shame and, of course, how we can move beyond it. Today's teaching is simply entitled Shame. This teaching is very profound. It's very deep, but quite important to understand. Please think along with me, and I will be as clear as possible in the presentation. Let's begin. At some time in your life, you probably heard someone say to you, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Or worse yet, you said to yourself, I am ashamed of myself. Regardless of who said it, there have just been times in our lives when we have been ashamed of what we said or did. How many times perhaps you regretfully said, I should have done better, or I could have done better. Why did I act so poorly? I'm ashamed of myself. These are powerful words of self-indictment. Only you could say them to yourself And you have often said, I am ashamed of what I have said or done. And as often as you said those words, perhaps you then vowed that you will never do those things again. And yet after a few minutes or a few days, you reverted back to the same shameful behavior. For people who seldom think beyond surface actions, they just accept the fact that, well, that's just the way life is. It's just the way life is. And they accept their faults as simple imperfections that they have to live with because, well, you know the sayings, no one's perfect. To err is human, to forgive divine. But for those of you who have thought more deeply, for those of us now who are on a spiritual path, we have understood something quite different about why things are the way they are. You have come to realize that in the history of humanity's past, there was a fall of consciousness, a fall of consciousness. Now, regardless of why there was this fall of consciousness, and there are many reasons given, regardless of the reason, you have come to know that this fall of consciousness has resulted in the energy of shame that is right in our genetic makeup, in our human DNA. This is important to understand, that through that fall of consciousness, there is an energy that is filtered into the human condition, that is in the genetic disposition of ourselves. Let's now move more deeply into the shameful conduct that many of us have been ashamed of in our lives. It is so much more than simply surface stuff. It's more than I could have done better or I should have done better. What I want to suggest to you that there are 5 particular experiences of shame that perhaps maybe are deeper at the center of the issue. First, that I have never lived up to my full spiritual potential, that I've just kind of putzed around most of my life rather self-centered. And if I were either to judge myself or have someone else judge me, I would probably, in a sense, be unsure as to whether I would give myself a passing mark. I just haven't lived up to perhaps what I thought I was capable of doing. Or secondly, there is something lurking within you that is always ready to call you out for some nameless offense. It's just like something isn't right at your core self level, and you know it. You just aren't you at your deepest level. And thirdly, there's a feeling of being soiled, dirty, kind of like a fallen angel. It's not that you think about it all the time, but every once in a while, you just kind of realize you're living a charade. It really isn't you that is showing up in your life as you would like to. Fourth, and things now get a little worse. These cumulative feelings of shame, and they are cumulative, make you feel that you've kind of always been a hopeless sinner, that you just have a fallen nature, and try as you might, that you're never really going to improve very much. Which leads to the 5th and the worst notion of shame. You feel unworthy of the love of God. Even though people might say to you, God doesn't make junk, you kind of feel that, well, you're the one exception. And you're very happy that God at least threw away the mold when he made you in a junky manner. Because of this sense of shame, which runs so deeply, people, of course, try to compensate for it rather than understanding its causes and moving beyond it. Such compensations, perhaps maybe you've used many of them, take the following 5 forms. The first one, people try to compensate for shame by competing. Because there seems to be a lack in them, many people want to prove themselves better than others, even in such seemingly acceptable ways as a spelling bee in a classroom, or athletics who are participating in the Olympics, or simply in service to others. This sense of being a little bit better than others seems to alleviate, for a while, that sense of shame within you until you began to look at it again and realize that it hasn't gone away. Secondly, a sense of elitism, a sense of being elite, of just simply being better than others, smarter, more successful, more respected. Of course, elitism is often praised and rewarded, as we sometimes say, this is an elite athlete. Such things do build up, in a sense, your personality self-image, but only to be deflated again. Only to be deflated again when you look at yourself more clearly. It's kind of as though you're climbing over others to raise up yourself. Third, the third compensation to shame is having control and power over others. Knowing that you have the power over others, at least temporarily, relieves your own sense of being lost. It's amazing how feeling superior to others because of position or money makes one feel better for a while, until they realize that this really is another false sense of superiority. It's a sham. It's a cover-up. The fourth compensation is one that is pretty much universal in scope, namely being critical and judgmental of others, whether warranted or not. It boils down to the judgmental person saying that at least I am not as bad as that other person. At least I'm not as bad as a lot of other people. Another form of covering up that hides absolutely nothing in the long run. The last area of cover up for shame is a sense of bragging. Not so much about yourself, but rather about those whom you feel connected with. It could be bragging about your child or your grandchild, or just rooting for an athletic team. The salve, the balm, seems to be that you feel good in their accomplishment, which you vicariously make your own. You like to brag about how great they are. Makes you feel better. Whew, a lot of guilt comes out. But with all that has been said so far, by way of the feelings of shame and how people try to compensate, we're now ready to address the basic problem of shame and how to move beyond it. But before doing so, let's address a preliminary comment that sets a direction for us. The direction is this: You must accept the fact you're ever going to get over shame. You must accept the fact that your soul, not your personality self, but it was your soul that had a part to play in the fall of consciousness. Do not blame your personality self. It was your soul that had a part to play in the fall of consciousness. For this teaching, the reason for the fall of consciousness is extremely important. What is important about this fall of consciousness from our soul level is that, well, if you have, in a sense, participated in the fall of consciousness, you can then undo that fall of consciousness. At the soul level, if you participated in it, you can undo that fall of consciousness. We are in charge of the solution to shame. Gather this into yourself. We are in charge of the solution of shame. Once you understand the participation of your soul in the problem, you are now ready to once and for all, hopefully, to make that realignment of your soul to spirit, and thus move beyond all shameful conduct. So with this opening comment, let me now address the basic problem of shame and its solution. First, the problem. The basic problem of shame was that your soul, and thus your past and present personality selves. But primarily, it was your soul that cut itself off from the God Spirit. This separation of your soul over lifetimes of reincarnation resulted in a buildup of third-dimensional karma. It was your soul that has built up this karma through your personality selves. This karma buildup made life seem to be a punishment, rather than to be as a gift. Thus one is prompted to ask, well, why does God permit such shameful things to occur? When in fact, it was your soul that initiated the problem in the first place. It's a matter of learning to see things from your soul perspective. Again, rather than seeing life as a gift, as a creative opportunity of self-expression, the soul wallowed in lower energy for quite some time. The phrase, a life sentence, began to take on new meaning. This phrase was much more than just a jail term. It kind of became, well, a condition of life. Life became a life sentence to lower shameful energy. What happened is that your soul allowed your personality self, to determine what was going to be real and meaningful. And the personality self, without the guidance of the soul, chose poorly. The personality self, left to its own choices, chose self-centeredness and material satisfaction over the intelligent, loving kindness of the soul. The personality self, without the soul's direction, aimlessly pursued self-centeredness and materialism. As these poor choices of the personality self continue, without the direction of the soul for your personality self continue, They became the electromagnetic energy of our thoughts and our emotions, which entered the very cells of our body. Thus, it was not long before we felt shameful, even before we did anything to act shamefully. We felt shameful because we were separated from spirit, because the soul had chosen to move in that direction. And therefore, we've had to accept the condition of shame as simply the human condition, seemingly without any control over it. We simply accepted this unconscious, shameful energy as the way life is, not understanding that just as the souls caused it, our souls can undo it. This is the game of separation from which we are recovering. And we are recovering from this game of separation with a very beautiful result, as we will now see. We now know that just as our thoughts and emotions are present electromagnetic energy, just as they at one time caused the low energy of our DNA, our genetic makeup, now, with our present electromagnetic energy, we can move to that higher light energy of thinking and feeling so that we can be the conscious expression of the God energy. It's all a matter in allowing now your personality self to allow your soul to be directed, and allowing that spiritual direction from your soul to direct the better choices of your personality self. We are on the upward path of releasing shameful energy from our thoughts, from our emotions, and also from our physical bodies at our collective level. Thus, let us now look at the solution for the energy of shame. Two major points will guide us. The first point has three particular steps. The first major point in releasing shame and realigning with spirit. The first step is the clear realization that shame is not your identity. Shame is not your identity. You have been created as a creative extension of the God energy, and you are now reestablishing your identity as child of God. Shame is not your identity, but is simply one more energy like fear and worry. It needs to be released from your energetic field, and you know how to do it. You know how to bring in the higher light into your thoughts and your emotions, into your cellular DNA, to release fear, worry, and those shameful energies. You know now that it is simply a matter of choosing differently, making different and better choices of your personality self, following the direction of your soul. You have allowed shame to hide your true spiritual identity, of blocking your soul to give you the proper guidance. Now is our time to choose differently, and we are. And we are advancing in our soul spirit achievement. And let me assure you, not only are you presently doing better, but you're going to get better and better as you progress. You have changed the words, I should do better, to I am doing better. I could be doing better, to I am doing better. It is a matter of knowing better. When you know better, you do better. You know better now. And as a result, you're quite capable of doing better. You know better. You know who's in charge. Because you now know better, you are doing better. This is the basic understanding in our first step. The second step, you are now transmuting shame. You're transmuting shame. Now take a good look at yourself and see if this is not what you are doing. You are transmuting shame into the higher experiences of oneness and love. And the reason why you are now transmuting shame is because you are in service to the God Spirit. You're not going to transmute it simply in service to your personality. You're only going to transmute it to the degree that you're allowing the God Spirit to be directive of that human personality. You are now happily saying that I am the love of God in human form. I am in the flow of a loving spirit, and the Holy Spirit is my God. And more so, not only have you stopped yourself judging shamefully, but you've also stopped judging others shamefully. Is this not true? Now that you understand yourself better and are much clearer about your identity, are you also not much clearer about the identity of others and seeing them better? Once you understand these first two steps, we're ready for the third step. This is really important. You have begun to realize that there is great power in group experiences, and that the group experience is very strong in moving us beyond shame. It's one thing to know of your own advancement, but it is quite another to know that you are not simply on a solo journey in life. It's not just about you anymore. You are learning to co-create with others. This is a big lesson, a big lesson. You're beginning to experience what it means to belong to a spiritual community, or maybe better yet said, what it's like to belong to a spiritual family. This is a new experience for many of us. And I'm happy to say that Now Creations is leading the way in such a communal experience. It's very important for you to know that Now Creations is here in service for you, as we understand that we, the members of Now Creations, are serving each other. But here's the best part. See if it's not true. The many members of Now Creations are serving the many people with whom we individually are in contact with. Many members of now creations. We are serving many, many, many people with whom we are individually in contact. We are helping many other people now to release the shackles of shame because of the strength that we are now able to present to them. Do you not clearly see this? We especially see it, of course, in our book studies, in our reports, in our ads. We're sharing this energy, as we do here in our Sunday services. We're now ready for a brief but a rather poignant second point concerning the removal of the energy of shame. I think that many of you know what it is. And you know it's one of my favorite sayings, only because it's true. And that is, we have become biological transducers of the light. We have become biological transducers of life itself. Note the word biological. For many years, many people, especially seemingly religious people, looked upon the body, our biology, as a very low energy that needed to be controlled. It would simply get too far out of hand. The body, for many people, became a place of shame. We have all known this, but not anymore. We now see the body as a biological transducer of light. How far we have come from seeing the body as shameful to now seeing our bodies as vehicles of light. Yes, of course, we have to be wary of excesses. But now, please, do not look upon your body as shameful or evil, but rather the instrument of light in ushering in the kingdom of God on our beautiful planet. In conclusion, I know that you have appreciated this teaching on moving beyond shame. It is a heavy teaching. I encourage you to view the teaching more than once until you realize that there's nothing shameful in God's creation. That includes you. Nothing shameful. On the contrary, that, well, we are biological transducers of the light. And how important it is to know who we are and what we're doing. And especially belonging to a spiritual community that is leading the way in our spiritual evolution. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. We've all said it. Or had it said to us. The good news, the good news, even in shameful conduct, was that little spark of, I could have done better. Even in the midst of not doing better, there was that little something that said, I could do better. I should do better. I want to do better. Despite Jesus teaching, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Plato saying, come to know God and be as good as the divine itself. Those just seem like hopeless, hopeless possibilities because we didn't understand what was going on. And probably most of us have gone through all of those compensatory measures to overcome shame, not even perhaps realizing why we were doing it, just a need to feel better about something. But even there, although murky and cloudy, there was that something that said, it can be better. It can be better. There was always that feeling that I know better. I know better. I know better. And eventually that light came. That light came. With the help of others, books, authors, seminars, discussion groups, I came to realize that now was the time for the reversal in history of moving from personality identity to soul spirit understanding of self. But then something else happened that was very, very significant. This was beyond what you had thought. Even though you came to know better, the biggest change was you began to feel better. Your biology started to change. Your biology changed. You felt better. Many of you know that feeling. It just kind of came to the surface like, well, I just want to love everyone. I just want to love everyone. I just want to love everyone. Rather than self-centered, You wanted to love everyone. Self-centered did not feel right anymore. Hallelujah. Getting lost in stuff just didn't feel right anymore. And part of the solution, quite frankly, was joining with others who were moving in the same direction. It was helpful. And being a participant in that direction. Then understanding how being a participant in that direction enabled you to see so many other people sharing their experiences as you have yours in giving direction into the lives of others. You are understanding how it really works. A heavy teaching today, but one that's very important. So let's be a little lighter by concluding our meditation with coming to the fore as biological transducers of the light. That is a catchy phrase, but more than it being catchy, it's truthful. Biological transducers of the light. And in that energy, let me invite you back to your breath. Joyful, happy to be that biological transducer. In that energy, just joyfully breathing your eyes open. Happy to say, I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me, and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.